Awesome, we're live. Can everyone hear me? Just want to check if you want to message in the chat. How about now? Sweet. Awesome. That's great. There is a little bit of a lag on the YouTube studio screen versus what I'm saying at the moment. So if I take a little while to figure out what you said, that is why. How's everyone going? Great. You can hear me? A bit soft though. Let me see if I can turn that up. I don't know if that does anything. Great. I think we're still waiting for a few people to join us. So we'll just hang on for a second. Beautiful. Thanks, Michael. It works well. Sweet. How's everyone doing? Cool. You know, our first workshop, we ran it through Zoom, which was awesome that I could see your faces. But since it was lagging a little bit on my internet, that's why we swapped over to YouTube Live. So I'm unable to see your faces or reactions. So if you could comment in the comment section, that'd be awesome. So I can make sure you guys are there. Oh, it's super cold. Way colder. I'm in a hoodie and sweatpants now. Yeah, freezing. $15 viewers. Awesome. I think we are waiting for roughly 4 more, and we'll continue in about 5 minutes or so. Straight off the bat, you had 4 bed sheets on last night. Amazing. Let me just get a link for all of you. In this workshop, we are going to do a whole bunch of editing. So if for those who don't have Premiere already installed or After Effects, I would definitely recommend installing it now if you could. That'd be good. Cool. I'm going to share a link, and this is just to a some footage and some audio, which we can all edit together. So if you wanted to download that as well, that'd be awesome. Sweet. Yes, all of them. All of them is good. And we'll go through all of them a little bit later as well. I'd love to get a rough gauge who has used Premiere on a scale of 1 to 10. How confident are you in Premiere or After Effects? That'd be awesome. That way I know what will really help you guys. And if I'm looking at, I just realized I'm looking at my screen more than I'm looking at the camera. So apologies for that. Awesome. 0. Amazing. 6. Great. 5. 0. I'm in the same. Great. That's perfect. New to both. 5. Cool. Very easy. Nice. Not to worry. 0 After Effects. that's all right, because we're going to go through introduction to After Effects, which is going to be super exciting. I love After Effects, by the way, so I think you'll learn a lot. You've used Avid. Awesome. No worries. Looking for a better process? That's great. After Effects about 1. No worries. You and a lot of other people have them all, but yeah, you don't use them. No worries at all. Cool. Are you recording the stream? Let me check. Yes, I am recording just the camera at the moment. Which reminds me, I have to put a battery in it. Give me 1 second. Awesome. That was seamless. I saw Michael's last comment. It's a little intimidating. Yes, I can agree with that. Cool. Sweet. Sounds like a plan. So I think we have pretty much everyone in. So I think we'll start downloading or start getting into it. For those who just joined, if you have Premiere and After Effects downloaded, that'd be awesome. As well as I've put a link, which I'll relink to some footage and some audio. If you can just download the whole folder, that'd be awesome, and we can all edit it together. Now, by the looks of things, I would say majority of people have just cool, sweet. Majority of people have just been introduced to After Effects. They're not really too crazy on it, so it's great. We're going to start from the basics and work our way up. Yes, it might take a while. It's about 600 megabytes, so it's okay. We'll take a while to get there anyway, which is good. But as long as you have Premiere and After Effects downloaded, that'd be good. We're going to start with Premiere and then work our way to After Effects. So if you have to download one or the other, download Premiere first and then the other one would be good. Sweet. Awesome. So I'm going to start sharing my screen if you guys can see that. Just making sure. Sweet. All right, cool. You guys can see my screen. And it's all good. I got to kind of bounce back and forth between the two windows so you guys can probably see that. But anyways, 60 seconds away. Cool. Sounds like plan. All right. So starting with, this is called an advanced editing workshop, but I've included just a whole bunch of just introductions and basics, which I think every editor should know. So this is perfect for those who are just getting into Premiere and After Effects, but it's also going to cater to some more advanced things. So in this workshop, I'll just share the schedule. So it's a 3-hour workshop, which we'll see how we go. I have put some breaks in there, so we're not going to get too fatigued. And at the end, you could even send through your videos, and we can even go through them if you wanted to, because that personally really helps me when someone can just coach me through my own video, because it's a little bit harder to see from someone else's. Awesome. So in this introduction, we are doing introduction to editing. we're going to go through a challenge which we have for you. So that's why I think it's great that everyone downloads Premiere and After Effects so you guys can follow along. That's the best way I learn, because I feel like you're going to get overloaded with so much information that you might forget if you're not doing it physically. So we're going to have a challenge, and there is a prize and a giveaway, so be excited for that. We're going to go over file management, and I usually go over this in every workshop that I do, and it's really because it's so important. When I first started editing, I didn't do any file management, and finding like old projects was really hard. So teaching people this is very helpful. Premiere Pro setup. We're going to go over some basic shortcuts in Premiere, and then we're going to go over to more editing stuff. So like color grading, like audio, keyframing, and then we're going to jump into After Effects and do some keyframes. We're going to work on some motion blur and a whole bunch of other stuff in there. Finally, if I've missed anything that you really wanted to learn, we'll have a Q&A at the end. And also, we're going to, if possible, anyone wants to send in their videos and we can check them out, you can also do that and we can review them at the end. So that's pretty much the overall of the workshop. So hope you guys enjoy this. Yes, I can give you this PowerPoint. I can share that to you now. Let me get that for you. Cool. Sweet. Try that. Sweet. All right. Nice. All right. So an introduction to myself. If you don't know me, my name's Josh Chin. I run a small media production company called Unmarked Social, and one of the people we work very closely with is George's Cameras. So I'm actually in some of the videos now. I usually shoot with Andrew, and I do a whole bunch of other stuff with some other businesses as well, which is really fun. If you wanted to see a little bit of the work that I've done, I've wanted to show you my show reel for a sec. Hopefully you guys can hear the audio on this. Let me just check. Nice. Did everyone see that? Cool. Perfect. Audio works. Great. Sounds like a plan. Sweet. So that's a little bit about myself. And yeah, we work with a few different brands and businesses. I've got to travel over the years. So as you can see, we're based in Hong Kong. Not at the moment, due to everything that's going on. But usually I fly back and forth between Hong Kong and Sydney to shoot videos, which has been really fun. Cool. Let's get into it. So make sure you download the footage in the chat, which will be really good. We're going to have these sections in the presentation called recharge, where if you need to go bathroom, you can go for it. If you want to grab something to eat, something to drink, or whatever, just some breaks, because it's 3 hours, so we can just take our time. So getting into editing, I was watching a video yesterday, and they said there are people who can edit and there are editors, and I think this is a perfect way to sum up this workshop, which is we want to get into the realm of editors, not just people who can edit. So that is the goal for this workshop. The importance of editing, I think it definitely makes you a better cinematographer now that you understand what shots you kind of need. You can understand movement and framing better because you know what's coming next and what to cut to. In terms of being a director, it helps you with timing and conveying emotion through your videos, and also expands your creativity. Understanding what's possible and what you can do in certain programs like After Effects and Premiere Pro really expands the ideas of what you can do when you're filming. And finally, it understands your camera a little bit better as well. As you see, when we get to color grading, sometimes our footage isn't where we'd want it to be. So that way you understand what your camera can and can't do and how to work around that. So that is what we're going to be addressing in this workshop. So things you'll need, if you don't have it already, we need Premiere Pro, we need After Effects, we need the downloaded footage, and obviously you need your computer to edit all that. I'm just going to bounce back and forth. Very cool. Yeah. Sweet. Thanks, Nelson. Good video, good syncs. Cheers, Michael. Awesome. So if we go through it, so we have a challenge, as I mentioned earlier. So the challenge is to create a 30-second ad utilizing some skills you learn today. You can use the footage that is provided, or you can use some of your own footage as well. It's nothing really particular, like in terms of a commercial or an ad. I'll just give you an example. This is one I made yesterday. So hopefully everyone saw that. But yeah, you don't have to make it as crazy as that. That's just a quick example of some sort of video that's 30 seconds or less and utilizing some skills that we learned today. So as you saw, those text animations and some of the cuts we'll introduce you to in this workshop as well. So in order to enter, just tag Georges and myself as well in Instagram or anything like that, and we will be able to check it out. It will end at the end of this workshop, or maybe like an hour after, so you can kind of finish it up. But the idea is to create a full video within this 3 hours, which would be good. The prize is exciting. We have a full bag of Sony stuff, Sony like merch and different pieces like that. And we're also giving away a Manfrotto Pixie tripod. This is by far my favorite tripod in the world. It's super strong, so it can hold like a mirrorless camera, like an EOS R. I use it a lot for my GoPro, and also like my audio things, like my Zoom H1 and my Zoom H5. If I'm doing like voiceovers, this is a great tripod for a table or something like that. And it's really strong. So I would enjoy winning one of these. Awesome. So just again, 30 seconds, end of this workshop, or maybe an hour after, just upload it to Instagram and tag Georges and myself as well. Cool. Sweet. So jumping into, firstly, file management. So if you've downloaded all the clips, you should have all the files that looks like this. Let me jump into it. Here we go. Cool. So you should have all your footage like this, not that one. Cool. That's random. All right, sweet. And then you should have a few pieces of music as well. But back in the day, when I didn't know how to organize all my files, I kind of just put them all in one folder and named it something. So it looked kind of like this. I didn't really have a numbering system. This is not mine, but it looked identical to this. It's if you can't see it in terms of resolution, it says this is the final one. Seriously, this is the final one. And I just kept getting my last names of my projects longer and longer. And I usually run into problems like this. Now, if you haven't used Premiere before, you wouldn't recognize what this screen is. But essentially what this means is that your project file can't see the footage because it doesn't know where it is. So file management is super important, and especially if you know Maria Kondo, this, which is the more organized files, sparks joy, and this one does not, which is the unorganized files. So the way I organize my footage now is that I make one folder and then have all these subfolders in that. Taking a step back, taking a look at Premiere Pro, the way it works is you have your project file, and then it has to create invisible strings to your footage. Now, if you move that footage, obviously Premiere cannot find your footage. So usually you come up with that red screen, and that's really bad because then you either have to find it or you might have deleted it. So I ran into that problem all the time until I started learning this file format. It helped a ton. So in this master folder, which you don't have to call it master folder, you just call it whatever the project is. So if you take a look at this one, let's make this one editing workshop. So that's my master folder, and then I can put my footage in that. So now I would have this folder, and if I was to move this folder, all the graphics, all the music, all the footage is already in that folder. So I won't have any issues of that red screen coming up. So as you can see, all my footage is in there. Oh crap, I don't want that. Nice. And for the ones who have audio, I actually forgot to download the audio, so I'll download that later. But I would create a separate folder for audio as well. I'm just gonna download that. Cool. Nice. And as you can see by this photo, I have ones for stills, for project files, for graphics, and for exports as well. So if you guys want to go ahead and just organize the files that I sent you, that'd be pretty good. And I'll get a thumbs up or something in the comments just so I know that you guys are on the same page. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. And you can go for like a deeper dive. As you can see, I have A-roll, B-roll. Sometimes I break it up just into cameras. So if I'm using a GoPro and my Canon C200, I would just name the folders after the cameras, because some might have A-roll, some might have B-roll. So it really depends on the project, but the more folders essentially you can have, the better, in my opinion. So even in audio, I'll have sometimes voiceover, I'll have music, I'll have sound effects, and in graphics or stills, you can have those folders as well. So this is just a similar run through. So we have a hard drive, and then we have our master folder. So if we move this folder, all these folders will come along with that, which is good. Yeah, and this is just a breakdown of subfolders. Cool. Something that will really help you if you don't want to keep making folders all the time. Software called Post Haste is really good. So you can either create your own templates, or you can just use their stock ones, but they actually designed it for like video users and other people like that. So Post Haste is pretty good. Just make sure you download the right one. It should look like this, but I feel like if you type it into Google, there's a few different ones. So just get this one. It's pretty good. Cool. Now that we're all on the same page, what's the difference between A-roll and B-roll? Cool. Yep. So A-roll is generally what you have talking to camera. This is your A camera. So we usually do it by camera. So we have A camera, and if I would have a second camera, that would be B camera. And the B camera is more just like cutaways. As we go through it, I'll show you like a George's video, which we've done. And then we always have the A camera, which is talking to camera. And then say we talk about like the back screen of the GoPro, and we do a close-up shot of that, then that will be our B-roll. So, usually I break those up if I do it that way. Yeah, cool. Hopefully that answered your question. So in this workshop, one thing to note is that I'll go through a whole bunch of stuff, and just remember at the end, I've left it some time for us to go through a few things if I've missed anything that you really wanted to learn in particular. So just an introduction to Premiere. Premiere is an awesome editing software. You can edit all your videos. They've created and edited a few movies from Premiere, like the ones that I know I've highlighted. So Superman Returns, The Social Network, Thunderbirds, A Go, Hugo, Gone Girl, Deadpool, Avatar. These are all edited in Premiere Pro, which is pretty dope. Now, if you haven't seen a timeline before, this is a quick example of maybe like a movie timeline, and you can see they have all these different layers in their timeline, which is awesome. But we're going to start from just maybe one or two. But that is what you can get to. Big goals. So the best shortcut in Premiere Pro is Control S. So remember that if you don't learn anything in this workshop but this, I wouldn't be that disappointed. Control S is just this shortcut for save, and you'll notice that I keep mentioning shortcuts as we go through this, just so you get faster at editing. But Control S is the best shortcut to know. So let's open up Premiere for those who are on their computer. Sweet. Yeah, I'm going to open up Premiere now. And so you should get this window for a little bit. Hopefully your computer's fast enough to keep up with the stream and the software, which would be good. This is my computer. I used to use Mac, but now I've swapped over to a PC, and it's been okay. So just hit the new project button, and you should get a similar screen to this. I'm going to jump to the comments just to make sure everyone is following along. Everyone is good. Cool. Josh Bell, got it. Sweet. I'm guessing everyone is in a similar place. So we shall continue. Yep, Nelson's got it. Michael's got it. Awesome. Sweet. So this window is how to set up your project in Premiere Pro. At the top, we have the name, which you can name it after the project. Usually, I name it after the exact name I name my master folder. So I'm just going to copy editing workshop and paste it into the top here. So in the name, you just name it whatever the project is. If you're shooting a dog commercial, you would name it dog commercial, etc. And just make sure everyone's got it. Might take a little bit longer if first time opening. Yes, that is true, Ben Walker. Cool. But I'm going to continue. Just sweet. So just under name, we have location, and that's where you're going to save your project file. Now this is important, and the place where I save it would be my master folder, and then we're going to make a new folder called project files. Sweet. So now that whenever we go back to a project, we know exactly where our footage is, we know exactly where our project files are, etc. So I'm going to select that folder and just make sure everyone is following along. Wow, YouTube Live is very interesting compared to Zoom. Zoom was a bit more reactive, whereas since there is a little bit of a lag, I have to wait, which is okay. But you guys can also message me on Instagram if you want. So I'm going to open up my Instagram just so that way, if anyone wants to do that way, it might be easier for you. Cool. All right. Nice. So just underneath, once we found our location, we're going to go underneath that, and you'll see renderer. This is important for those who have a graphics card in your computer. In order to actually utilize the graphics card, you've got to make sure that it's in GPU acceleration. If it's in engineer software only, or engine software only, it will just use your computer CPU, which is not the best. So if you can, and you have the capability to jump into one of these guys, press GPU acceleration. And next to it, it will say CUDA or I think Mercury or something like that. But yeah, just pick the one that says acceleration. Sweet. And that's pretty much it, to be honest. Like, everything should be in the same thing, like default. So we have timecode, we have audio samples, and we have DV as well. Everything else shouldn't be much changed. So I normally just leave all the rest of it. So we're just going to press OK. So those three things: select the name, select the location, and select that you have your GPU on. Cool. Alright, awesome. Just going to make sure you guys are on that same page. If you guys want to comment anything saying that you guys are there, that'd be awesome. Just don't want to rush past, since we do have a few people introed to Premiere. Don't want to rush you or anything. Whoa, wrong one. Cool. I have GPU, CUDA, and OpenCL. Yep. They did a test, OpenCL versus CUDA. They found nothing. No, they're pretty much the same, so it doesn't really matter. Mine says Metal or OpenCL. Yeah. Same thing. Metal, OpenCL, kind of the same. Cool. Yep. On the same page. Great. Sweet. So if you open up your Premiere, you'll see that it's a very Windows-based operation. So all these are broken up into windows. As you can see, this is a Mac screenshot, so it's not Windows only. But the actual way you work is by windows and workspaces. So if you can move them around, you can change it up, you can organize it the way you like it, and maybe in the future, when you kind of understand what everything does, you'll probably adjust it personally, because I know so many editors, everyone has a different style. But I usually use the workspace of all panels just so I can see everything. So at the top here, you'll see either workspaces, or you can go to window, and then it should say workspaces, and then you can choose one. As I said, I use all panels just so I can see everything, but I know other people like to switch between them depending on what they're doing, like editing. If they're cutting up the footage, they change to color, they change to audio, they change to effects, but I usually just keep it in all panels. Cool. Just making sure, yes, all good, on the same page. Sweet. Sweet. So next thing, once you've come to this screen, you might be a little stuck to what you're supposed to do. What we're going to do, the first step is import your footage. So there's two ways you can import your footage. Either you can right click here on this, make sure it says project editing workshop, or project, and then whatever you named your project file. But as you can see, it should say import media to start. So you can either right click and click import, and then find your footage, and then select all the footage and press open. Or the better way that I've learned to do it is just open up your in Mac they call it Finder, and just get your audio and footage and select both of them, and I just drag them in. Doing this is also beneficial because it actually creates the folders again for you already, so that way you don't have to organize it twice. It's just all here. So if I drop down the menu of my footage, you can see all my footage, and if we do the same for audio, it just shows all my audio. So this is really helpful, saves you a whole bunch of time, and ideally your project file should be organized in the same way your actual Finder is. So that way you can easily find footage again. And I usually use the list format instead of the windows, just so I can see everything, as you can see. And then I can also close it so it looks kind of organized, and if I'm working with the audio instead of the footage, I can do so. Sweet. Cool. Everyone on the same page, everyone's imported their footage, and it seemed pretty easy. Just gonna confirm that with everyone. Cool. I'm guessing so. Nice. Sweet. So next one, we have to create a sequence. So now that we have our footage in there, we got to figure out where we can put the footage. So if I jump over to my Premiere again, and this box that I keep closing is just a Logitech thing. It's really annoying, but I'm just going to place it there. Cool. So create a new sequence. 2 ways to do it, and you'll see in Premiere and After Effects, there's always 2 ways to do something, one faster than the other. But I'll show you the long way and the short way so you guys can follow along. So in the top left-hand corner, you'll see sequences. File, and then new, and then you can go new. You can obviously see new project. Let's go sequence, and as you can see on the side, there's also the shortcut of it. So it's Control N. So I'm going to click sequences, and then this is a bit of a close-up for you. So sequences. And then you'll have a window looking like this. So in this window, it's where you can actually pick what kind of resolution your timeline will be. So if you're editing for Instagram, say, and you want a square frame, then this is the place to choose it. Or if you want like a vertical frame, or if you just want the normal one, or maybe a widescreen frame, this is where you can choose all that stuff. So the most standard one and the generic one would be DSLR, digital SLR, and then 1080p. And then in Australia, we use 25 frames per second for our video. So going back to this screen, it will be under digital SLR, which is the 6th one. And then you should see 1080p, 25 frames. And once you've selected that, it should come up for the next project you do. So it should be pretty seamless. So I'm going to create my one, and let's go to digital SLR, 1080p, 25 frames a second. And you can also call it something if you wanted, as you saw at the bottom, you can call it something. I just normally either call it sequence 1, or if I'm actually doing B-roll, which I'll show you later, I name it B-roll. Sweet. So after that, we can press OK, or we can jump into settings, and this was where we would choose like Instagram or something like that. So right next to the sequence presets, you can go to settings, and then under the video section, you can see that it says 1920 by 1080, and that will give you the normal aspect ratio of a video. But if you want to jump over to maybe a square format, then you can just punch in your own digits. For square, if anyone's wondering, it's 1080 by 1080 or 1920 by 1920, depending on what resolution you want it. You can go for 1080 by 1920 if you want the vertical format, or you can go for 1350 by 1080 if you wanted. But those are really easy things you can look up, and then you just punch in the same digits into here. But I'm going to cancel that one because I just want the normal one. So once I create a sequence, I make sure I create a new bin for it, so that way I have all my sequences in the same folder. So like so that way everything's just a bit more organized. So I'm just gonna check the comments, make sure you guys are all cool. I'm glad. Yeah, cool. All good. Nice. Sweet. So we've done our sequences, we got all our footage in, and now it should be time to edit. So if you don't know how to create a new bin, you might just be hiding it. If you drag out this section, you'll see a whole bunch of new settings if it's too small, and then just click the bin option. That'd be good. Cool. Alright, so starting to edit footage. This is the more exciting part. So if we open up our footage, and if you're in list mode, don't click the actual word necessarily. I always just click the icon, so it always pops up in this source monitor. So you'll see if you double click it, it will come up in this window, and I can press play and it will show the footage like so. Nice. And so here, what I see a lot of people doing is either selecting all their footage, and then just dragging it in their timeline, and then cutting it up here. But the way I like to do it is seeing my footage into here, and I've taught this before, but we can watch it. And then if you want to select this section, you can either press this button, which is mark in, highlight just that section that you've chosen, and then you can play it, and then we can select mark out if that's where we want that section. And now we can select our actual image and drag that into our timeline. So that way it's only giving me that small section that I want, which is pretty good. And the shortcuts for that is I and O, so in and out. So it's pretty easy to remember. So if I want to go through it again, and I want this section, I'm going to press I for in, and then I want it to cut here, so I'll press O for out. So that way it's just selecting that area, and I can just drag that into my timeline. So just confirm you guys are all there. And also, how's the resolution? Is it okay? On my screen, it looks a little bit blurry. It's slowing down a little. Yeah, looks good. Everything's good. Cool. I just got this weird error message, but if it's all good on your end, that's sweet. I'm just going to close some tabs so that way might help. Awesome. So once we've done that, then you can put it into your timeline, and then say you wanted to cut it a little bit further, then that's where you can use the razor tool. So in order to get that, you'll see it on the side here. It should, once you highlight a few of the tools, you'll show the name. The razor tool, or C on the keyboard, is the shortcut for it. That's where you can actually cut up some videos and then delete some. In order to go back to the mouse, you can press V. So C and V are the two most used shortcuts, or you can select the cursor up here, the selection tool. So you should have a toolbar which have a whole bunch of stuff. So like this, cool. So it should look like this. Your cursor at the top, and your cut on the fourth one down. And if you're wondering why when you drag your footage in, it's really close, it's because I think I've sent you a whole bunch of 4K clips as well. Let me just check the resolution on that. Oh no, is it close? Seems a bit close. Oh no, it's not. There should be 1080. But if you're dealing with 4K clips and you're wondering why it's so scaled, it's because your sequence would be in 1080p, meaning that you have a lot more pixels than your sequence. So you can right click and press scale to frame size, and that should bring it back to your original clip if you wanted to do that. Awesome. So continuing, just a few shortcuts that really help me is zoom in and out as well. So if you wanted to jump in your timeline, say I wanted to get a really fine cut, you can press plus and minus on your keyboard, and that will zoom in and out of your timeline. So plus and minus are really good ones. And I've sent you guys the presentation so you guys can follow along. Awesome. So next up, my shortcut would be audio hardware. And that one's great for, especially if I'm using headphones and I want to switch to speakers. Changing your shortcuts to help you edit, as I said before, is really good. So I'll show you how to get there. If you go to File, it should be Control-Alt-K. You can bring up this, which will show you a whole bunch of shortcuts. So if you wanted to learn them a little bit faster, you could go into this and figure out what's what. So like the pen tool is really helpful. The ripple delete tool is okay, but big ones, razor tool, selection tool, zoom in and out. And the one that I really like is audio hardware. So you can customize them. So you can look up the shortcut down here in the bottom, and then you can add it to different keys. So I've added audio hardware to 7 on my keyboard. So if I click 7, it will actually bring up where my audio is going to be outputted to. So whether or not I'm using headphones or speakers, this is one of the most helpful shortcuts I've learned. Do you know how to make the stream? Oh, yeah, maximize. My clip is not showing after I'm dragging it. Make sure you're dragging it from the window here and hold it down, and it should have the hand like this and dragging it into your timeline. Try that and that should work. If not, you could actually press this little button here, which will insert that to your timeline. Or you can press comma on the keyboard and it'll do the same thing. Sweet. Alright, continuing. So once we've, you can play around with the shortcuts as well. You can even customize more shortcuts if you want. So I actually sometimes edit with just the audio only, so that way if someone's talking especially, it's a lot faster. So I've selected 8 on my keyboard to be just audio, showing my audio, and back to 9 to show the video. So those are composite video and audio waveform. Sorry, I just have to sneeze. Sweet. Oh. When it changes months, my nose goes crazy. So I'll get you guys to go through that process of just culling all the footage I've given you. It's not super big amount. It's there. It's just really small on the timeline. Oh yeah, just zoom in on your timeline. That's really helpful, Nelson. Yeah, so I'll get you guys to edit all those clips. It shouldn't take too long. So that's the first step of what I do in my editing workflow, which will be culling the footage. The next thing we're going to do is just organize everything a little bit better. Then we're going to put it together like a puzzle, figuring out the story. And then we're going to, what I usually do once I've finished my edit is usually go through and figure out how to make it shorter as well. And then finally we add music, transitions, sound design, etc. All the good stuff. And continuing, make sure you press Control S so that way you're saving your project. That's super important. So I'll get you guys to do that and I'll do it as well. So you can see, you can follow along. If you guys want to speed up, you think it's traveling a little bit too slow for you, you can press L on the keyboard twice and it will speed up the playback. So that way you can just watch it in real time, because I think some of these are slowed down. Great. I've kind of already cut most of these, so don't have to do too much cutting. And as I said, you don't have to use this footage if you want to create your own stuff. You can use whatever footage you want. Nice, that is going to fit well with this one. Yeah, so if I see anything that stands out, I usually just put them together. Put that one together. Nice. I'm just really doing a rush job. Alright, sweet, I've done it. Nice. So next up, if you guys are still continuing, that's okay. You guys can still go ahead. But just the next up on the organization level, usually want to cut up a lot of my stuff. I want to have a backup, so if I ever delete something, I can always get it back pretty easily, because going through the footage again does usually take quite a while. So I would normally create another sequence and just call it all footage or something like that. I don't know if there's an actual technical term you should call it, but I just usually call it all footage, and then just copy everything to that one. So that way, once I start making these a little finer, making the cuts a little faster, I know that I still have a whole backup of all my stuff, just in case I wanted to pull things back. And I think that's really important, especially when you have such a large timeline, and such a large amount of footage. Going through the culling process again usually probably takes the longest time. Sweet. So I'll just get a thumbs up from you guys, making sure everyone is culling their footage, is pretty in it, and then we can continue. Oh, nice. Maria, Maria calls it rough cut, which is good. Yeah, culling. Yeah, cool. Everyone's on the same page. Nelson is still culling, which is totally fine. This is just an overview. So I don't know if you know Jacko Willick, but he's on YouTube, I think, and he's an author of a whole bunch of stuff. But I saw him on a video, and essentially his methodology, or his quote, or his motto is discipline equals freedom. I think that's really true, especially in editing, in a sense that once you have the discipline to organize all your stuff, editing is such a breeze. I know whenever I have a project to do that's really big, making sure everything is organized is the best way, especially if you're dealing with other people editing your footage. If you get to a level, and then I know when I've been sent a project and nothing's organized, it's so hard to find things. So it takes me like 10-20 minutes to get my head around to where everything is, or even organize it from what they've done. And that just wastes time, and usually it gets you less passionate about actually creating or editing that project. So if you can organize it as much as you can, it's not only going to help you, your future self, but also help people who edit your footage as well, or etc. So definitely organization is great. In terms of the way I organize my layers, so I usually have my A roll on the first layer, and then I would have my B roll on the second layer, so just above that. And so the way, if you haven't used an Adobe program before, imagine an eye at the top looking down, and that's what they're going to see. So if you obviously have a piece of video on top of another piece of video, the eye is only going to see that top piece of video. So that's why you might not be able to see a certain clip. It might be just covered by another clip. So that's the way it works. And on top of the B-roll, I have an adjustment layer, which we'll go over later, which is more so color grading. On top of that, I have a bit of graphics, and then on top of that, I have some animations and motion graphics and stuff like that. You can also get a little bit more in depth with your organization. Sometimes I do this, sometimes I'm a little bit lazy and I don't, but you can actually label things and put colors to like pieces of video, sound effects, music, and you can color coordinate everything. I know a lot of people decide to put their music in Mango. That is very common, but I sometimes do it, sometimes I don't, depending on how big the project is. So we talked about putting a redundancy timeline, but I also do that with my B-roll pretty much for every project. If I have someone talking and then I have a whole bunch of B-roll, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, the B-roll on top of the footage, so I usually delete it. But if I ever want to bring it back again, I know that it's in another timeline. So organizing your footage with timelines is also really helpful. Just making sure everyone is on the page. Has everyone finished culling your videos as well? Just want to make sure everyone's up to speed. Don't want to rush anyone, but we do have a whole bunch of stuff to get through as well, so be good. Yep, awesome. Ben Walker. I'm assuming Ben speaks for everyone. But next up, we're going to talk a little bit about narrative and story. Now, this is something that I think is more so from an experience. You just start to get to know what works with what. But a few key points. First up is work in scenes. Like cutting up a massive video, it's easier to work in just small little bits, so that way you know that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. So continuing to edit in those little scenes is really helpful. Just like putting an establishing shot, a medium shot, and a close-up, so that way they know what it is, and then once you get closer and closer, you can see more detail. Just like things like that, I think really help, especially from an audience standpoint, understand what you're trying to show. Like whether that be you're trying to show a product, obviously showing really close up just the lens, which they usually do for like teasers and stuff like that, but obviously the audience doesn't know what it is. So doing a wide shot first, going to a medium, maybe like showcasing around the GoPro or whatever, and then going to a close-up to point out a specific feature, I think is really helpful for the audience to understand. Pacing and genre, so understanding what genre you're in, and then understanding how fast you need to cut to it. So if it's a educational piece, like say a workout video or a cooking video, instructional, cutting really fast is not going to help because they're not going to be able to keep up with doing the steps as well. Especially with cooking, I'm not a great cooker, so I would need to have a slow video. But if you're doing more so like a concert video, which is very upbeat, very fast paced, making that edit really slow is obviously not going to fit that genre. So understanding genre and pacing is really helpful. Next, with interviews and B-roll, whether it's a review of something or they're talking and sharing, I think one of the first editing tips I got when I was editing is 3 seconds or more, which is how long the B-roll should be on top of that. Because sometimes, especially when you're really eager, you want to showcase all these different things. So I cut really fast when I was doing interviews. And obviously interviews are a little bit slower in pace, so cutting fast doesn't just fit that genre. So 3 seconds or more, so that way the audience can actually digest what you're showing to them, I think is a really good rule of thumb. But as I put guide next to it, because it's not a rule obviously, but 3 seconds, pretty good. Also, when you turn off all the audio in your video, people should be able to still understand what kind of story you're telling, even without the audio. That is a really good way to figure out if your video works or not. I think that's super helpful. As well as when you are using audio, use it to elevate your video. So adding sound effects is really helpful, and adding like having a great voiceover and all these different things, making sure your audio is crispy and clean, definitely helps. Cool. Everyone is up to date. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So let's continue. So now talking a little bit about audio. So once we got all our clips in our timeline, like so, cool. So I got all my clips in my timeline. Next thing is audio. So I'm going to make sure everyone is still on the live stream. So if you could record a 10-second voiceover for your video, that'd be awesome. I'll do one as well. And so that way you actually have some audio to play with, because I didn't include some voiceover because I thought it'd be a good thing to make sure you guys are attentive. So I'm just going to do it on my phone and then put it into my Premiere project. And phones are actually really good for just recording voiceovers in voice memos. It's not too bad. Let's take a look at my footage and see what I'm going to say. Also, don't be shy. I personally don't think I have the best voice for voiceovers, but why not give it a shot? You know what? I found the perfect script for my. How do you delete those gaps in the timeline? Oh, perfect. Great question. So if you have a gap in the timeline, the easiest way you can do it is just select the gap in the middle of your clips and just press delete, and everything will it'll just bring it together. That's the easiest way I do it. Or when you are culling your videos, make sure your cursor, your line, is at the end of the clip, and then you can press this button, and it'll make it exactly flush for you as well. So try that out. So I'm going to do the voiceover segment. It's a quick round fuck something. Quick. Stream buffering. Yeah. Sorry, I think my internet's struggling a little. Alright, cool. It's okay. Suzanne, select and delete didn't work on my Mac. I just pressed backspace. Maybe that could be it. Maybe I'll try delete. Oh yeah, delete works as well. But yeah, just make sure this area is highlighted. Oh, one thing to note as well, make sure these are turned on. This one here, make sure that's turned on, and the magnet's turned on, and the linked selection is turned on. That will really help you when editing. I know when that's turned off, it really drives me nuts. So this, essentially the magnet, is going to help your footage snap into place, which is really helpful. It's still working. Okay. Alright, make sure it's pretty smooth on your end. Sorry, this is really interesting. Back to this guy. I'm gonna record a quick voiceover. Quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Great. Just do it once more. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Great. So I'm just going to send that to my computer. If you guys are still with me, having voiceover done, so good. I'm going to do that too. Let's just choose a folder. Cool. Are we back? Is everyone still with us? Sweet. Cool. Alright, we're back. Finally. Let me check. Just download this guy. Oh, why isn't it downloading? Anyways, let me just send that again. Cool. I'm just gonna send it anywhere to my computer. That's not working. Sweet. Awesome. I have a message from Maria. Keeps buffering sometimes. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Not too sure why that is. Can you do a voiceover in Premiere? I believe you can. I've never done it before. But I believe you can. I could probably figure it out in another time and send it through. I just downloaded a motivational clip from YouTube. That's perfect. I should have done that. That's even smarter than what I did. Great. So once everyone has their voiceover, and hopefully I'm coming through pretty clear. Is everyone still with me? Just making sure it's not buffering too much. Cool. Stream seems okay. I'm guessing it's still coming through. Buffering. It's good now. Back now. Okay. Man, I gotta figure that out. What is happening? Great. So if we drag our audio into our timeline here, actually I'm gonna delete that. Let's go to do our same things that we did earlier, which was the I. A quick brown fox jumps over the log, and the O. So make sure we've selected the bit that we want, and we can bring that into our timeline here. I'm also going to turn off my audio so that way you guys don't always have to listen to my computer speaking. Let's try that, see what that does. It's just coming through my computer. Sweet. So we're going to do that, and we're going to also add our music. So I'm just going to bring in my music into here. Cool. And yeah, music you just put underneath your other bits and bobs. But in terms of audio mixing, I think that is something that took me a while to get my head around. So once we have our voiceover, let's try do some audio mixing to make it sound a little bit better. Because at the moment, it doesn't sound incredible. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. See, it sounds okay, but nothing too special. So let's go back. Sorry, I'm switching my screens so many times. Great, let's talk about some audio. So once you have recorded your audio, something to note when you're recording on your camera, try hit around 12 decibels, negative 12 dB. That's where we'd want to have it. So that way your audio is not too high and not too low as well. As you can see in Premiere, we have our audio levels just next to our timeline, just here. So that will show negative 12 dB, and that's where we'd usually sit most of our audio around. The second audio sounds dope. Okay, so I'll go back and get that one instead. Or are you talking about this song? I don't know, but let's do that one instead then. Great. So jumping back, once we figure out voice normally lands around 12 decibels. Music usually around negative 36. Depends on what you're doing, but when you're using voice and music, roughly that combination is pretty good. So in terms of improving our audio, we're going to use a few tools in Premiere. Firstly, multi-band compressor. Essentially what a compressor is doing, it's compressing your audio, both the lower and softer bits and the higher bits, and just making it a little bit more even-steven. Next up, we're going to add parametric equalizer, and you can do a whole bunch of stuff in parametric equalizer, but what we're going to do is just add a little bit more bass to our voice. Next up, like especially when you're recording in a noisy environment, you might want to use denoise, so that way it's going to just bring down the room sound and just elevate your voice. And try not to overuse this one because it does distort your voice a little bit too much. I'm also going to use de-reverb as well. So that what essentially is going to, if you have any echo going on in your room, it's going to reduce the echo. So let's jump over to our back to our Premiere project, and usually what you can do is go to the effects tab right here. Let me just cancel that. So the effects tab is where you would find a whole bunch of what we're going to do. So you can type in multi-band compressor and select that. But when it comes to audio, what I like to do that I find so much easier is using the audio tracks in the top here. So if you see your source window, a few tabs across that, you should find audio track mixer, sequence 1, and that's what we're going to do. So if you guys find that, let me know. You guys are on the same page. Cool. Nice. Yeah, I'm glad you like the music, Michael. I got it off musicbed.com. That's pretty good for music. Awesome. So once everyone's in audio track mixer, if you press the little arrow where it says show/hide sound effects or effects and sends, this is where you can actually apply the same audio effects, the whole line of audio, instead of pasting it on each individual clip. This helps you tremendously. So you can do it either by master, which is everything, or you can do it by each individual track. So the one we're going to go to A2, and so that way it's going to apply these effects across all of A2. So if you have like cuts of audio, this will really help. So the first one we're going to add is multi-band compressor. So if you click the little arrow and go to multi-band compressor just under amplitudes and compression. That's the one. I'm gonna hit that, and I'll just make sure you guys are on the same page. Alright, cool. Thanks for letting me know. Let me just wait till this kicks back in. You guys on it. Cool. Give me 1 sec. Let me just check my internet is okay. Alright, sorry about that. We should be, I'll repeat what I said just in case it didn't come through. Hopefully it's still coming through. Alright, cool. Just make sure it's coming through. Cool. So, like I was saying earlier, you could apply one of these effects directly to the audio clip. But the way I like to do it is to use the audio track mixer, just in case you have a whole bunch of clips. Rather than applying this effect and copy and pasting it on all of the clips, you can just apply it to the whole track and it will do that for you. So in order to get these white boxes, there is a little arrow just on the side, really small arrow on the side, left hand corner of the audio track mixer box. Just make sure you got that. So once we click that, then it will open up a whole bunch of these ones. Yep, should be good coming through. So then what we can do first, let's start off with multi-band compressor. So in here you have a whole bunch of settings, which, to be honest, I'm not a massive audiophile. I definitely like videos more than doing audio stuff, but to become a better filmmaker, understanding a little bit of audio really helps. So if we go to presets, you can jump over to the preset I usually use is broadcast, but there's a whole bunch that you can choose from. You can even make your voice sound like you're speaking through a walkie-talkie, which is kind of cool. But let's go to broadcast. That's the one that I use the most. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So that's with it. Let's do it without it. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Fox jumps over the lazy dog. That's with it. So there's definitely a lot it adds to it. It really just amplifies the voice, makes it feel a bit more rich. A quick brown fox. A few things that I do is just turn down this guy, add this to 5. So fox jumps. Gives me a bit more low end. And what you can also do is add a limiter to your audio as well. Yes, there's white box. Oh, nice, got it. Which do we click there? Yeah. So each of, sorry if I didn't explain it, each of these correspond to A1, A2, A3. I've put my audio on A2, so that's why I'm using the A2 one. And if you click the little arrows just next to this whole stuff, you're able to add some stuff like multi-band compressor, denoiser, etc. So I've added multi-band compressor, which is just through the compression and menu here. So if you want to get that one, be good. Yeah, so once we open that one up, you'll see the same things that we have here. So presets, select broadcast, and for a limiter, what essentially that's going to do is when you talk really loud, it's not going to get your audio peaking, so it gets a bit distorted. So what we can do is add a limiter so it will never go and peak. I usually get this to about -3, and make sure you turn it on. A quick brown fox, so that way it's never going to go over -3. And the cool thing about this as well, if you have a whole line of audio that is a little bit softer, you can bring up the whole track instead of just each individual clip, just by the gain option here. So let's bring it up. Jumps over the 4. Sorry if I played it while I'm talking. Cool. So I'm going to save that. Make sure you guys are continuing to press Control S. Let's make sure. Where did you click to open up the preset? Cool. Yeah, sorry. If you double click the multi-band compressor, once you've selected it in the option here, it will come up with this this window. And then you'll see broadcast, and then usually I turn my bass to fit the level that it's peaking at, so this one, the threshold, and then I normally add 5 decibels. The next thing we add is the limiter, sitting at -3. Make sure you turn it on, and usually that does bring down the level of audio, so I usually just bump up the gain just a tad. Cool. So hopefully you guys found that one. Cool. So it should be sounding a lot better. The next thing we're going to add is a parametric equalizer. What this essentially is going to do is we're going to add a little bit more bass to our audio. So if you find that just under filter and EQ, you can see parametric equalizer, and same thing, if you double click it, it will open up another window here. And what we're going to do is just bump up our low end and bring it a little bit to the right, sitting just around 20 and hitting around 100 just here. So 20 on the side here and about 100 at the bottom. And then we're going to press this one here, so it's going to make it more of a sharper curve. So now if we A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. That's a bit too much. Let's take it down just a tad. About there is pretty good. Make sure that's selected. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Yeah, that's not too bad. Going to cut my audio. Let's see where you guys are at. Got it. Ooh, nice. I got did the limiter. Cool. Did everything. Awesome. I'm glad you guys are up to date. Cool. And then I think on this one we can add a little bit of noise reduction, which you can do just under parametric equalizer. We're going to press the little arrow on the right hand side, and then let's add denoise, and then that's usually set at around 40. I'd probably take that down because sometimes it distorts your voice. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. As you can see, it kind of sounds like I'm talking in a tin can. So I'm just going to turn that down to quick brown fox. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Yeah, sweet. And it's going to be different for everyone, of course, but that's kind of like the settings that I usually use to get my audio sounding pretty good. Awesome. I'm glad the stream is streaming well. Cool. So once our audio's set and ready to go, and you've added in your music, the music is nothing in particular. You can adjust that to however you want. The next, what I like to do is select my clip and press Control-Shift-D. As you can see here, what that essentially is going to do is add 2 transitions on each side. It's just the shortcut for it to add constant power to each side. And essentially what that does is just fade in and fade out, so that way your audio doesn't sound like noise and then cut really quick. Makes it a little bit more smoother transition. So, got it. Cool. Yeah, nice. So yeah, if we press plus on the keyboard to jump in closer to our timeline, you can see that I've added just these little transitions by pressing Control-Shift-D. On Mac, it would be Command-Shift-D, and it just adds these little transitions on either side. What you can do to customize the transition, maybe because usually it comes set at quite a lot of frames, you can change it in preferences on how big you want that transition to be. I set mine around 4 frames, but I'll show you how to set yours. So you go to Edit in Mac or PC, sorry. Edit, but on Mac it should be something similar, and then go to Preferences, and then go to Capture. Let me check. Preferences, Timeline. Go to Timeline here, and then on Timeline you can select your audio transition default duration, and I select mine to 4 frames. That way it's not super long, covering my audio. Yeah, so that's up to you on how long you want it, but I've set mine to 4 frames, so that way it's just going to cover 4 frames of my audio. But I think that's super important. I definitely think one of the biggest mistakes when a beginner is editing, their audio is a little bit all over the place, but cleaning up your audio is always a really big help. Sweet. So now continuing, moving on to sound effects. Now, I'm not going to go super in depth with it, but if you were to do edit some in your challenge video, highly recommend it. There's a whole bunch of free websites out there. I use YouTube some of the times. You just have to check the licensing on it. But then I just download it, put it into my audio folder. Make sure you do that. And you can play around with the sound effects as well. Highly recommend, because it really gives another level to your video. Especially with the waves crashing, it will really feel like you're there once you add some more sound effects to it as well. Epidemic Sound and Envato Elements are also some great softwares that have some sound effects included with some music, so you can try those out if you're looking for a paid subscription. But takeaways from it: audio levels sit around -12 decibels, music around -36 or 24 decibels as well. One thing I'll show you as well is my favorite thing, which is how to end any song. That's something that I found super helpful, especially since we are making a 30-second video. Sometimes our music is a little bit longer, usually sitting around 2 minutes or so. So figuring out how to end a song is really good, rather than just crossfading it. You can make it sound a bit more seamless. So let's figure out where we want our music to be. Let me just turn down the music a little bit. So, if you wanted to figure out how to turn down your audio, press G on the keyboard, and it will come up with an audio gain option. And then you can take your music down a few decibels by going -5, 10, 15, depending on how much you want. You can play around with it. Or you can right-click and press audio gain. So 2 options. But G on the keyboard is obviously way easier. Once you've selected the audio, G, and then you can play around with it. So that's really helpful. You can't change your options in preferences. Preferences and then timeline, maybe, if that's... Michael, it's really about Michael asked, in the future, how do we know what value to put? What are some things to look out for? Yeah, definitely. I personally it's just about like listening to what necessarily sounds good. Everyone's voice is going to be different. Some people have more bass in their voice, some people don't. So using the parametric equalizer, I would say the multi-band compressor is pretty much good to go for everything. But multi-band compressor, I would say try add less bass to, obviously the people have a deeper voice, otherwise it's going to sound really bassy in someone's headphones. Denoise, really, like if you're in a quieter environment, use less of it. But if you're obviously outside, you can use a bit more. Just make sure you listen to the whole track, because sometimes at certain areas it might sound like you're speaking through a cup or something. That's just the way it processes it. So just keep an eye out for it. But hopefully that is something to look out for. Suzanne, can't change your preferences. Not sure which one, but if you send me a screenshot or send me a photo on Instagram, I might be able to take a closer look. But if you go to timeline on preferences, just here, you should be able to change them. If you can do it seconds or frames. I do it in frames because it's a bit more refined. Seconds, you can only go so far. Alright, sweet. Got it, cool. Yeah, usually it's about 1 second for your default. But I'll show you how to, next up, just cut your audio to end any song. So, a quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So I really like the build up in this track. So let's just let's find that build up. So let's try, obviously that's a dip. Let's try end it somewhat around here. Great. So when you're trying to end a song, try find a click or a beat, so that way it can easily fade off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this beat. If you wanna see your audio a little bit better, go to the left-hand side of your timeline and double click the channel. That will just expand it a little bit more. That would be pretty good. So I've selected the little bit that I want to transition out of. And so what we're going to do is go back up to our audio track mixer, and let's change, hold on, let me just make sure you guys are good. Yep. So let's select the beat that you want it to end on. And what we're going to do is add a reverb to it, so it fades, but it does it in a way that it sounds a bit more natural. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this little bit. I'm going to press Alt on my keyboard and drag it down. So what that's going to do is just duplicate that piece of audio that I've selected. So Alt on the keyboard is how to duplicate something if you're looking for that. So now I have two of the same things. See, just one under the other. So make sure you click your video first with your mouse, press Alt, and then drag it to somewhere, and then release. One thing, I was pressing Alt first, and it didn't really work. So make sure you click the video first, and then press Alt. Cool. Just make sure you guys following along. Nice. So now, once we've selected a piece of audio on our audio track 4, now you'll see our audio 4 has appeared in our audio track mixer. And we're going to do something similar to what we did on the other one, which is add an effect. But instead, we're going to go down to reverb this time. And if you go to studio reverb, I'm going to select that one. now we can add some reverb to our clip. So double click Studio Reverb once you've added it, and that will show up this window. And we're not going to go for any, you could try out some presets, but what we're going to do is just change it ourselves. So if we go through here, the first one I'm going to change is make my room size a little bit bigger. So I'm going to take it up to 90. I'm going to do my decay. Let's start at 8,000. We can change this. This is going to be more so the duration of how much it's going to reverb out. We're going to change our early reflection to 55. Oh, sorry. And our width to 55 as well. And the most important one is going down to the bottom and trying out your wet and dry. My mind, wet and dry is going to mean how much it stays within the audio track itself, and wet is how long it's going to expand after that. So let's do 100% wet and 0% dry, because I want it to continue on without being in my timeline, if that makes sense. So if I do these settings, so again, we're going to go to 90 on the room size, decay 8,000, early reflections 55, width 55, the rest keep it the same, and the output level dry is going to be 0 and wet is going to be 100. So now if we do that, if we play it, you're going to listen out for it. So obviously I got to make that cut a little bit more refined, but you get the idea that it just transitions it out a little bit easier. Yeah, so I'm gonna obviously just go a little bit more this way. And you want to try to have just one beat in it. If it has two, it doesn't really sound as good. So I'm going to shorten it. Let's try this one. So like with everything, it's just a bit about playing around with it, seeing what works, what doesn't. There we go. So if you wanted to make that a bit shorter in terms of the way it decays out, that's where you would change your decay. So if you take it down to 5,000, 5,000, it will make it way shorter, like so. So you can play around with that. If you make it longer, it's going to be a bigger transition compared to the shorter one. Make sure you also have some footage that extends past the audio as well. Otherwise, it's not going to actually fade out. If you don't have anything past that, like this footage, see how it's past this sound, it's doing it. But if you don't have, like if I cut here and delete this stuff, it's not going to do that transition. So make sure you have some audio or some videos behind that. Cool. Alrighty. So once everyone's doing that, you can play around with that. I'm going to put a recharge here, and then we're going to get back into it. We're going to run over a few last things in Premiere, and then we're going to jump over to After Effects. So that way, After Effects is more of a really hands-on one. So hopefully we can smash through that one real soon. So I'm going to let you have a recharge. If you want to get a glass of water or anything, go to the bathroom, or just tidy up your edit a little bit more to the music. I'll leave you guys to do that. I'm going to grab a real drink real quick. I want to select a part of the audio and split it and then duplicate it, but I seem to only cutting it shorter. Okay, so if you select your audio and you want to split it, so you want to cut it, So let's use the razor tool. So you can either select it on your toolbar, or you can press C on the keyboard and press anywhere and to cut, and then press V. Make sure you go back to V, or select the cursor, so that way you have the cursor and you can actually move around that piece of audio. And now to duplicate it, we're going to press Alt once we've clicked it and let go, and that should duplicate your audio. So try that one out, see how you go. I'll be right back. All right, awesome. So everyone, hopefully you're going well with your edit. Nelson asked what effect was it to do at the end. We're going to do studio reverb. That's the one. And if you want to check out the settings, that's them. Hopefully your edit's going pretty well. Let me know in the comments or shoot me a message on Instagram. I'll just message it in here, and I'll also studio reverb, settings 90, settings 90, 8000, 55, then the rest is that. Cool. Michael, anyone know how to duplicate it? Duplicate which one? The piece of audio or the music? You could even press Control C if you find a piece and then move your cursor along. Make sure you have these audio tracks unselected, otherwise it's going to paste the audio clip on this audio. But if you have your A3 selected, you can paste it on that one and it will paste on this track, which is pretty easy to do if you can't do the Alt one, if that's what you're looking for. Cool. Donna says preferences may take effect after a restart. Yes, that could be true. I can't change the audio part. Okay, yeah, maybe it might be after a restart. Are you able to show us again the settings of the reverb part again? Yes, of course. So if we jump into Studio Reverb, there we go. So room size at 90, decay at 5000, early reflections 55, width 55, the rest I leave, and then the only thing at the bottom is 100 wet, 0 dry. And make sure you just do it on a beat. Find a it can be any point in the audio. Just find a beat that you're happy to stick with for it to fade out, and that's where it would be good to cut. Cool. So hopefully you got it there. Sweet. All right, now let's move on to something a little bit more exciting. So once we've taken our audio, we got that in there. What you can do as well, if your voice is a little bit higher than your music, in order to make your music a little bit more level, we can double click our audio track and make sure it's open like this, so we have a line in the middle. What you can do is press P on the keyboard or use your pen tool just over here on the toolbar. So P for pen tool, click that one, and then we can actually press our point on our audio and another point and drag this one down. So what that's going to do is make sure our audio is going to go like that when our voice comes in. So if we play it now, a quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Like so. We also can just drag this out so it makes it a bit more of an even transition. Jumps over the lazy dog. Oh, I deleted my other clip. Something like that. Pretty good. I'm going to make my studio reverb back to 8000. Nice. So hopefully you guys are up to a similar part in that. So you can put those points in your audio like so. And this is really good for anyone doing interviews or anything like that. When you have a part that's not them talking anymore, ramping up your audio really makes more impact in your video for sure. Cool. So selecting these points, just once again, use the pen tool and make sure you select the line in the middle of your audio, and then you can just drag down one of the points to make this curve. Sweet. Just making sure you guys are following along. Cool beans. The stream seems to be healthy now, which is good, so it's not cutting out, which is nice. But I'm going to continue on. So hopefully you guys are up to a similar step. If not, let me know in the comments. More than happy to take a step back. But the next thing what we're going to do is go to our text. So text is obviously something that's very common. You want to put it up, whether it be a date or someone's name or a location. So we're going to do a text, and then we're going to show you how to animate it. And then we're also going to use that in After Effects as well. So if we select our text tool just at the bottom here and jump on to, make sure you're in program sequence rather than reference, because sometimes it switches between reference and program and it looks kind of identical, but make sure you're in program, and then you can select anywhere on the screen of program and it'll come up with a text bar. I'm just going to type in beach, or let me type in water. Great. So I can select water, And if we go to our right hand side and go to Essential Graphics, that's where you'll see a whole bunch of options, just like in Word document, to change your font, your text size, position, paragraph, all that good stuff. I really like to use the font Helvetica New. And just make sure you also select your text as well. That's a big thing, otherwise it's not going to actually move. I like to go bold extended. And let's center that as well. So I'm going to put it in the middle paragraph. I'm going to center it with these as well, which is really cool. So if you go to Align and Transform, it actually gives you a few presets to where you position your actual text. So I'm going to go to the middle and to the middle as well. So something like that. Just make sure you guys are on the same page. I don't have the line in the middle of my audio. Nice. So if you don't have the line in the middle of your audio, Suzanne, make sure you expand your audio track. So you can either do it by just expanding like so, or double clicking it like before. So double clicking it will bring up the line in the middle, but that is super helpful. Yeah, cool. So yeah, hopefully everyone's up to date. You've got a font, and hopefully your videos are looking good. That little break should have been nice. So obviously you can't really see my text, so I'm just going to add a different color. Let's try this one. Bam. Yeah, that looks intense. Hey, let's bring it up a bit, and let's center that. Cool. So a quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So that is such a random video, but hopefully you guys get the idea. Cool. Alright, found the line, can't get the pen tool to put a dot. Yeah, so just make sure you you've selected the pen tool, not the cursor tool. So if you select the P pen tool, and then you should see a plus sign next to the pen tool. If not, just zoom in a little bit more, and that should come up for you. How do you open the window on the right where you can choose the font? So that is called Essential Graphics. So if you select your text layer, so make sure you have a text layer, and then if you go to Essential Graphics, I'm in all panels, just as we mentioned at the start of the video, or at the start of the stream, sorry. I'm in all panels. So you can either, if you're not in that, you can go to Window, Workspaces, and select all panels, or find the panel here and it should come up. But what that's going to do is just be able to edit your text. Cool. How did you open? Yep. So hopefully that got you covered. So our video is coming together slowly but surely. One thing, firstly, before we get into After Effects, is we're going to show you just a little bit of color grading for those who want to make sure that their videos are all looking similar. What we're going to do is create an adjustment layer first. And essentially this is just a layer we can add our color grade to. So what I'm going to do is create a new bin, and I'm going to create one that says graphics. So that way I have everything organized. And then in that bin, I'm going to select the bin and go to the corner here. And if you can't see all of these options, like the page with the corner and the bin, make sure you just expand your project window, and you should have that in there. Like so. I'm going to collect the little page with the corner folded, and if you click that, it should come up with new a menu of a whole bunch of stuff. And then I'm going to press adjustment layer. Sweet. And it would just come up with this window, and it's essentially just showing you what resolution it's going to be and what frame rate it's going to be. So I just leave it because it will do usually the same as your sequence. So once we've created that, if you select graphics, it should automatically go into the graphics folder, which is great, so that way you don't have to drag it there. But what we're going to do is get our adjustment layer and drag it into our timeline. So I'm going to put my text above the adjustment layer and my adjustment layer in between my text and my footage, and I'm just going to drag my adjustment layer a bit bigger. Cool. Yep, so I'm guessing you guys are on the same page. So there's two steps to color grading, which is color correcting first and then color grading. So color correcting is more so just making your original clip is at a good standard, and then color grading is baking in a look and feel across your whole video. So that's what the adjustment layer is for. But what we're going to do first is go to color correcting. So if I select my Bondi drone waves video and go to Lumetri color on the right hand side, it should be a few tabs under essential graphics, which it should look like this one. So Lumetri color and basic correction. If you don't have it, go up to window and then you can find it down here in Lumetri color. So just make sure you guys are all on that one. Yep. So in here, what you can do is adjust all the like contrast, exposure, similar to like if you've used a photo editing app or anything like that, like VSCO or something. It's very similar. So what we're going to do in Lumetri color is also open up Lumetri scopes. This one is in the similar area where our audio track mixer is. So just here, and you might have a few different ones up here. I have waveform RGB and vector scope YUV. So in order to select those, you can just right click on this Lumetri scopes window and it should come up with those. So essentially a waveform, if you don't know what it is, I've explained it a little bit in our last workshop, but a waveform is essentially an exact readout of your image here, but it's showing it in lumens. Yes. And as you can see here, these are my waves, and these are the darker bits of the waves. And then you'll see, since I have this part in my image is a lot brighter, that's why it's brighter in my waveform here as well. And what this vector scope is doing, that's actually showing a little bit more of what colors I have. So as you can see, it's really pumping that yellow because my text is yellow right there. So I'm pretty sure you guys would be on the same page as where I'm at. So I'm going to continue. So what we're going to do with this guy, I've pretty much corrected a lot of the footage for you already. But usually what we're going to do is take down our blacks to just be above the 0 line. We're going to take up our whites to just be above the top line of the 100 there. Because this is broken up into whites, highlights, shadows, and blacks at the bottom. So these are all your darker bits at the bottom here. And then just above that will be all your shadows, just above here. And above that is your highlights. And at the top, you'll see your whites. So our goal is to keep it all within this parameter to show as much dynamic range in our footage, but also to make it look nice, obviously. So for me, I'm going to take up my shadows a little bit, so that way it sits just around 20. As you can see, this is the majority of my shadows here, and I'm going to sit them around 20. And then I'm going to take my highlights just down a tad, a lot of things are my highlights, but I'm just going to take highlights down a tad, and that's before and after. You kind of just see a little bit brighter, seems a little bit brighter. Just making sure everyone's on the same page here. I'm sure you guys are just busy working out your things. How do I highlight the text? Yeah, you just, if you're in your project window, you can just select it and double click and it will highlight it all for you. Sorry if I missed that one. Cool. I also have I made a YouTube video of the color correction, so you guys can follow along that as well if you missed it in this video. But that's pretty much what I do, color correction, and then I go to my adjustment layer, and this is where you can bake in a look. So I still in Lumetri color, but I go to a different tab. I close my basic correction tab and open up creative. And what this is going to do, I can add a look. So you can put in your own, you can buy different looks, but Premiere also has their own built-in templates. So if I select this layer, you can see I have a whole bunch of looks. They're also known as LUTs, which is lookup tables. Essentially what it is just a filter, kind of like in Instagram. You know how you can swipe across in stories, kind of the same. But it'll bake in a look, as you can see here. If I click this one, makes my footage look cool like that. And I really like this one, which is Kodak 5218, Kodak 2383. And this is by Adobe, so you guys should have the same one. But for me personally, it might be a little bit too intense, so I'm going to just take that down, which you can just adjust in intensity here. And we can take that down to about 60 or 70. And as you can see, if I turn it on and off, you can see massive difference. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. What an inspiring video. I'm also going to just take down my exposure on my actual clip a little bit as well, because it's a bit overexposed at the start. So that's where I'll take down my whites a bit. And my highlights sit around 90. And bring that down by -1. Maybe add a bit more contrast too. Cool. And fox jumps over the lazy dog. Nice. Do you feel like when you look at a word for so long, sometimes it doesn't look like you spelt it right? That is definitely with this word water. I feel like, oh, this looks like waiter. Anyways, sweet. So that's just a really quick overview on color grading. If you guys have any questions on that, you can definitely ask me a little bit later, or check out my YouTube video, which I'll send through later as well. So that way I just go a little bit more in depth on it. But since we are running on time, or a little bit, what's not on time? Running a little bit late on time, let's go to our thing called keyframing. So this is definitely one of the more, one of the parts you would really use in After Effects, which is called keyframing. And essentially what it is, you're selecting a point A and a point B. This allows you to make animations, it allows you to move text, it allows you to move your video from one side to the other, etc. So keyframing is really crucial part, especially in After Effects, because you're doing a lot more animation or motion graphics. So I'll show you how to do it in Premiere, and then we'll jump into After Effects and do it in there. Now, doing keyframing and a whole bunch of stuff in After Effects is a lot easier, but I'll show you in Premiere first so you get an idea. So what we're going to do is select our, let's make our water, our text move. So what we can do is double click our text layer, and it should open up effects controls. If it doesn't, you just have to select it in the top left hand corner, just where all your other like Lumetri scopes and stuff like that we've selected. So just select it in there, And then what we're going to do is find our, first you got to think of what animation you want to do with it. I'm going to make it go from small to big. How's that? So let's, for that one, we use scale. So as you can see, this is the place where you can make it move around. As you can see, my water is moving left to right of the screen. Or you can make it go up and down, all these different bits. But what we're going to do is use this scale tool, which is just here. So that will make it go bigger and smaller. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do first is click this little stopwatch on the side. And it looks like this guy. This is a bigger image of it. And you'll see these all over Premiere and After Effects. This means you can keyframe this parameter, which is pretty cool. So if we've selected that one, that you'll see a point has now been made on my timeline here. This little point has set an A point on my timeline. And so once we have an A point, we're going to create a B point. So that way it goes from A to B. Let me just make sure you guys are pretty good with everything. Yeah, awesome. So we've created an A point. Now I'm going to create a B point. So I'm going to create this one to be really big. So what you can do, you can either double click it and you can bunch in your own parameters, which I'm going to do, let's do 800 and see what that looks like. See, as you can see on my window, it's pretty massive. Let's go a bit bigger. Let's go to 4,000. How's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, good enough. Okay. Now if we play our video and we see how we have 2 points now, an A and a B point. I've put my big one first and my going back to the normal size a little bit later. So that way it's going to shrink really slow and end in the normal position. So let's play that and see what it looks like. A quick brown. Oh, that was way too quick. So if you place your keyframes too close together, you just have to stretch them out and then your animation will play. So let's bring our B point and just stretch it out a little bit later. So let's play that, see what it looks like. A quick. Good enough. Bit too slow. I mean, bit too fast. So what we're going to do is actually just bring out our cursor to where we want it on our timeline here. And then we'll just zoom out on this timeline as well until we see our cursor. And then you can grab that point and drag it to your cursor. So that way you know exactly where it's going to end. So let's play that back and see what it looks like. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Wow, that is moving. Cool. That's pretty much how keyframes work. Hopefully everyone's got that. Hey Josh, yes, this is recordable. This is being recorded. So you can go back through it. Unfortunately, we have a whole bunch of bits in it where I'm like, are we recording? But anyways, yes, this is being recorded. Cool. So hopefully you guys are following along with that. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So that's pretty much a basic keyframe. Now what we're going to do is take it to the next level. So you don't have that much parameters that you can adjust in Premiere Pro. You can't make it really spin upside down, or you can't add motion blur too easily. You can't make individual pieces of the text move, etc. So what we're going to do is open up After Effects, and in the time we have left, let's run through some basic After Effects so that way you can try it out and get used to it. So next up, let's open up some After Effects. So I'm going to open it up here, and it's just going to take a little bit to load. Sweet. Alright, so After Effects is on. Just making sure no one's messaged. If I've missed anyone's messages. Cool. Sweet. So once After Effects is open, you should get a screen like that. Let me make sure everyone is good. Yes, I'll need to add my sweet. Awesome. So yeah, jumping into After Effects, this is my favorite program to use. I use it pretty much in every job. So let's take a look. Opening up a new project, like so. And this one, unlike Premiere Pro, doesn't show one of those windows. It just shows this panel. And instead of sequences, you're actually working in compositions. So as you can see here, we can select a new composition. And let's do that. So I'm going to select that. And this screen will show essentially what aspect ratio and what resolution it's going to be, but also duration. As you saw on Premiere, we have pretty much an unlimited timeline, whereas After Effects, you have to be a little bit more precise with what you want. So at the top here, we have presets. So you can select a preset, which usually I just do HD TV 25 frames, this one. HD TV 25 frames. So if we select that one, it pretty much adjusts everything accordingly here. The next thing what we're going to do is down here in duration, that is super important. At the moment it's set to 2 seconds, and I want to set mine to, let's do 10 seconds. I think that's pretty easy to do. So 10 seconds. Keep in mind as well, After Effects does use a lot more of the computer. So if you don't have a fast computer, you might see it lagging a little bit, and that's why I've upgraded to this monster of a computer. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all you need to do is just put it HD TV 1080p 25 frames a second, and let's try that. Duration 10 seconds, and you could also pick the background color if you want, but I just normally keep it in black. That's pretty easy to do. So if we hit OK, I'm just going to make sure everyone's on this page. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, making sure you guys are still with me. Yeah. Cool. Sweet. So we have our composition. Now we're ready to make some stuff, which is great. First thing I'm going to do once I've made a composition is press File and Save As, or Save, either one. It'll bring up this. So that way you can actually make sure you're saving all the progress that you're doing. And we're going to save it in the same project files folder as our Premiere project. And what I usually do is just call it the same thing as well. So that way I have my editing workshop, and I have my editing workshop of my Premiere project as well. So let's go save that. Cool. So we're going to save all our progress here. Sweet. So what we can do is, for time's sake, let's bring this into After Effects. So this is one of the reasons I use After Effects and Premiere, is because they link together really nicely. Unlike if I was using Final Cut, I would be just kind of stuck in the Final Cut ecosystem, whereas this I can actually use After Effects as well. So what we're going to do is, once you've selected this is in Premiere Pro, select your text layer and go to Replace with After Effects Composition. What this is going to do is going to take that text layer and bring it into After Effects for us. So let's do that. Cool. It's actually going to create a new composition for us, like so. Sweet. So now we have our water, or whatever you guys have chosen your ones to be, in After Effects. It does put it in a pre-composition for us, which is okay. What I'm going to get you guys to do, if your icon looks like this one in the corner, I don't know if you can see that very well, But what I'm going to get you to do, if it's not red, double click your water, and then it should look like so. So that looks a bit better. That way we can adjust our text a little bit easier. So if it looks like this one, double click it and it will open another composition for you. Sweet. So now if you want to see your keyframes that you've put on your text, what you can do is press U on the keyboard and it will come up with your animation. Oh, right, that makes sense. Okay, sorry, backtrack a bit. Go back to this one. Instead of double clicking it, we're going to stay on this because that's where our keyframes are at. Essentially what it's done is it just puts it in a composition, pre-comp. But as long as we have our keyframes, that's all good. It's all good. So I'm going to refine this text a little bit more firstly. As you can see, it comes in with this big yellow spot on the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another keyframe under position. So in After Effects, it's a little bit more intuitive when it comes to animation. So we can actually press P on the keyboard and it'll come up with position for us once we've selected our layer. You can also do the same for scale. So you can press S on the keyboard and it will come up with our S, which is our scale. So I'm going to press P on the keyboard and go to the cursor at the start, and I'm going to select a keyframe. So now I have a point, and then if you press U on the keyboard, once you've selected your layer, it will come up with all the keyframes you have on this layer, which is really neat and easy to use. Cool. I'm just going to make sure you guys are still with me. Cool. Great. So now that we have 3 keyframes so far under position and scale, I'm going to move this position one out to where my other one is. And let's create a new keyframe. So if we move any of the parameters, it will make a keyframe for us. So if you hover over the parameter, it will actually bring up 2 arrows on either side of a cursor that looks like this. Then we can actually shift left. Once you hold down and shift left and right, it will move the parameter and make a keyframe for us. So if I click and drag my mouse to the right, you'll see it's moved the text to the right. But also it creates a new keyframe for us. So now if we play it, it doesn't have any of the yellow in it until I press play. It's going to come back like so. It's pretty cool. Kind of looks like Star Wars. Sweet. But as you can see in our animation here, it kind of goes really slow and then it kind of speeds up and then stops really suddenly. I want it to kind of be a little bit more smooth in transition. So that's where After Effects really helps, and you have a bit more parameters in After Effects. So what I'm going to do is going to select all my keyframes, and what we can do is right click on the keyframes, go Keyframe Assistant, and go Easy Ease. I'm just going to leave my screen like this for a while, so that way you guys can follow. But essentially what this is going to do is going to get my keyframes and add like a transition to it so it's smoother when it's ending. So if you guys are on that, go to Easy Ease, right click Keyframe Assistant and Easy Ease. So I'm going to do that. And you'll see my keyframes now, instead of looking like diamonds, they look like a timer. So now if we play that again, bit smoother, which is nice. Now if we wanted to add a little bit more motion blur, see as we go through our text, it doesn't look like it's moving essentially, because in real life you have a little bit of motion blur. So we could add a little bit of motion blur to make it feel a little bit more lifelike. So if you can see 3 boxes just here next to your water layer, you'll see 3 boxes. If you don't see them, you might have to press toggle switches mode just at the bottom from this one to this one if you don't see them, but you should have 3 boxes here. The first one is the one that we were going to use, which looks like a bunch of circles stacked on top of each other. And if we click that, that adds motion blur to our layer. Also make sure that the balls stacked on top of each other is highlighted in blue up top here. That makes sure it's on. Otherwise you might have it on the layer but not on the project, and then it won't work. But you got to make sure both of those are on. So it's blue and it's selected. So now if we play it, you'll see it adds just that ever so slight bit of motion blur to the side of our W and the side of our R. That way it feels a little bit more like it's moving. Like so. Boom. Nice. So that's pretty cool. I'll just make sure you guys are on that step. Can you magnetize the keyframe markers so they align perfectly? Yes, they should do that automatically. Oh, it doesn't do that. Maybe if you have your cursor on it, it does it. But it doesn't like increments, so it's pretty okay. Like so. Kind of clicks. Kind of. Nice. So now that we've done that, hopefully yours is looking cool, like this one. But as you can see, it's a little bit slow at the start, and then it speeds up, and then like kind of speeds up the end, which I want to slow down at the end. So what we're going to do is select the 2 last keyframes, not the first ones, just the 2 last ones. And we're going to go to this button here, which is called Graph Editor. That should be just above your layer and next to the motion blur that's blue. So click that and it should come up with this one. Going a bit slow, so make sure so that you guys are following along. And you should have something that looks like this. If you don't, you might have to right click and make sure you're in Edit Speed Graph. Speed graph is the one that we want. Cool. So once you're in there, make sure you've selected your last 2 keyframes and select Graph Editor. To go in and out of Graph Editor, you just have to click it again. So that's pretty easy. Cool. So once you've selected the last 2 keyframes, you can see, if we zoom in, same controls as Premiere. Plus is zoom in, minus is zoom out. And you'll see this little ball attached to the line, and essentially what that is controlling is how steep your curve is next to your transition. As you can see, it goes from slow to fast, back to slow, and that's what the bend here is for. But if we want to bring this in a little bit, like so, just that little ball or that little circle attached to the line looking like a lollipop, we bring that in, it makes your out point a little bit slower. So it goes from slow to fast back to way slower than before. So in my opinion, that makes it a little bit smoother. Like so. Nice. So hopefully yours is looking like that too. Yeah. Ta-da! Nice. Cool. So if we jump back to now our Premiere project, you'll see that the layer has turned a different color, and we'll see that it shows up in our Premiere project because they're linked. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So if you guys want to comment that yours is looking similar, or shoot me a video on Instagram of what yours looks like, that'd be dope. But if not, we'll continue. So that's pretty good in After Effects. Let me open up our presentation. Let's go through a few things. Awesome. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of how to use After Effects a little bit more. It's all really about keyframing. I will show you my favorite text animation in After Effects. I also have done a tutorial on this as well on Unmarked Social's YouTube channel, so you guys can check that out a little bit later as well. But just for reference, I'll show you guys how to make some text in After Effects. So similar to our Premiere project, it's just we don't have our toolbar in the middle here. It's actually up in the corners up top. So if we go to the text tool, similar in Premiere, we can just jump into and select anywhere on the frame. Now what I'm going to type in is water. Awesome. Cool. So I'm also going to align that, and let's make it bigger. So I'm in same thing as After Effects. Same thing as Premiere. I'm in all panels in After Effects. So if you guys are in that too, then we should have the same looking screen. So if we selected, so once we jump back into our selection tool, we've selected our layer. It will open up character on the side. If you don't have it, just open up character in the window here. But that essentially will make our text bigger or smaller, same as Word, like before. I'm going to make mine, let's make it 100. Cool. And then just above that, you'll see a line. So as you can see, it's a little bit to the right. I'm going to select a line, and this will bring it to the middle. So just like we did in Premiere, as you can see, there's presets to where you want to set it, but I've just selected it in the middle. So I'll make sure you guys are on that same page, just here. Cool. Yeah, nice. So hopefully you guys are in the same. If you're wondering what this text is, this is Helvetica New, extended bold. And I've, in the corner here, you can actually see that we can flip our stroke and our actual text fill. So stroke is the ones that are around the edge, and text fill is obviously the ones that fill in the middle bit. I've turned the fill off and just have the stroke, so that's why mine has an outline to it. So you guys can do the same, or I really like this look, and I've done it in the commercial I showed you at the start. But yeah, so if you have yours similar to this, what we can do is go down to the left little corner, just right next to the actual layer itself. So as you can see, I have an awesome layer, and I have a little arrow next to it. If you click that, it should come up with text and transform. Along the line of text, you'll see next to that has animate and a little arrow again. If you select that little arrow, it has a whole bunch of other menu options, which for all these different other effects, but we're going to go for character offset. So if we select that one, you'll see it just like there. And then what we're going to do under animator, you'll see range selector. So if we go to range selector, just that little arrow on the side, you'll see we can keyframe some stuff. So we can keyframe start, end, and offset. So I'm going to keyframe the start. So I'm going to click that keyframe. Now I have a point on my timeline. And if we go over to, say, 0, let's keyframe again and put our start from 0 all the way up to 100. Like so. Cool. So if I play that, it's really doing nothing so far. So we just have to add a few more things. First up, if we go to animator 1, once again, you'll see next to that there's another arrow that says add, and then another arrow. If we go to property, and then we go to opacity, like that. Let me just check you guys are on the same. Cool. Yeah, make sure you guys are on the same. Then once we've added opacity, we can take that down to 0. And now it should come in like so. It's pretty cool. Nice. That's really cool. As you can see, it fades in. If we want it to be more like a keyboard, like then we can remove that fade just by going range selector, as we see start and offset, and then we have advanced. If you click the little arrow next to advanced, we can go down to smoothness. I know a whole bunch of settings, but smoothness is the one that we want, and then we can take that down to 0, and then we'll just remove that fade. So now it kind of clicks in more so. Sweet. We can also make it random, come in at random instead of just A to B. We can, under smoothness, 3 levels under, it's randomize order. And if we click that, then it will make our text come in randomly. It's pretty cool. Sweet. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of After Effects. Like everything, I really learned it with a whole bunch of tutorials on YouTube, and just really by playing around with it. I just took the time, especially now since we're like just at home, you could probably pick up it pretty quickly. But in effects tab, just on the side here, effects and presets, you can see we have a whole bunch of effects that you can try out, and I'd highly recommend doing that for yourself. And let me know if you have any questions as well. Cool. So continuing on, hopefully you guys are up to a similar stage. Let me know in the comments once again, how's your music going, how's your cuts going. Hopefully you got something together and have tried out the After Effects template as well. A few things I'll go over if you're still editing would be just a few editing tips and techniques that really helped me. So number 1, audio is your best friend. Highly recommend, especially with the transition that we just did. As you can see, it kind of, I don't know what the word is, but just splashes in the text. So adding sound effects to also go along with your text is really cool. It really adds another level to your video. But not only like the audio, like music, voiceovers, all these things are great. Focus point is definitely one of the things that I feel beginner editors struggle with, in a sense that your focus point in video is super important. As an editor, it's your job to make sure the audience doesn't feel disconnected from your story. You want to make sure your audience is engaged with your story and your video as much as possible. So the focus point is something that really drives where the audience is going to look. So if I cut from this clip, so this is my A roll, and I cut to my B roll. But if I cut from here to here, as you can see, the focus point is just above the center line of the video. And if I cut to this clip, it's almost at the bottom of my screen. Now, this is not a drastic jump, but it really helps when you have your focus point in a similar area on the next clip. So that way audience's eyes don't have to jump from one section to the other. It's always a seamless transition. Now this you'll pick up a lot when you check out movies, especially in a movie called Mad Max. They usually frame everything center. So that way when they cut really quickly, your eyes don't have to shift. You can continually just look straight at the center and you can absorb all the information. Usually when the focus point is at a different part of the screen compared to your previous one, you have to keep it on the screen for a little bit longer because it takes the audience just that little bit more time to figure out what's going on in the frame. So being a good editor, I think focusing on focus point is something that's really helpful. So hopefully that makes sense. Now going to cut off word. What does that mean? Cutting off word, especially if you're doing an interview, especially if you have any voice in your video, just try to cut in a gap of the word. So if I show you on my project here, I'm just going to mute these audio tracks so you don't have to listen to it. But if we find a gap in the audio, you can also double click on the left hand side, just off the left hand side, and it will expand it a little bit more. But as you can see in my voice, you can see all these dips, and that's essentially word for word. Now, if you find a gap and you say you're looking to cut, I would recommend cut in one of these gaps. So that way, when someone's talking, it doesn't feel as abrupt. Especially when someone finishes a sentence, this is the perfect time to cut to another shot, or in the middle of the next comma or something like that. That's a perfect place to cut. So make sure you cut off word. It makes your video feel a lot more smooth. Sweet. Next up is cut it shorter. I see a lot of the times, especially when I was shooting a lot of my videos, I wanted the best shot. I had maybe this shot was 5 seconds and it was awesome, really, really cool. But it doesn't really fit the context of the video. And for other people that don't appreciate cinematography as much, maybe, it just felt really long. So cut it shorter when possible. I think nowadays, since there are so many videos out there, whether you're doing client work or you're doing just work for yourself, I know I just released a Japan video that I took, a trip I took 2 years ago. As you can see, the cuts are really quick. As because I want people to watch it to the end because they want to see the whole adventure. And usually, I personally, at the end of the day, don't want to see all the longer form bits. I want to keep people engaged. So cut it shorter, I think, is a really good thing that I gotten used to. Sweet. Next thing is know the quality of your video and audio. So audio and video is kind of like an elastic band. You can only push it too far before it snaps. So similar in when you're grading videos, color grading videos, if it's like an iPhone video or a GoPro video, you'll see sometimes when you push it in a sense where you bring up your shadows or you push down your highlights, you'll see it kind of deteriorating in a sense that you get more grain, you get more artifacts, and especially in your audio as well. Sometimes you might push it too high or push it too low. So make sure you're just watching out for all those little bits, trying to perfect it without breaking them. Cool. So this is perfect time. Recharge. Let me know how you guys are going with your edits. I would love to see them at the end of the workshop. In the last few minutes, we're going to go over a few exporting stuff because that's how you're going to show me the videos. I'm guessing you guys are super busy with all your editing, which is good. So let's jump over to Sweet. So whilst you're doing that, I thought I'd show you just a breakdown of another timeline so you guys get a better idea. Make sure you guys save all your projects before even closing them. I'll show you another project. Let's check this out and get another hard drive. Wow, that's stuck in there. Cool. Sweet. See how easy it was to bring up all that stuff. Organization, massive help. So as you can see in this project, I have a whole bunch of layers. Breaking them down, one of them is the adjustment layer and the logo in the top corner here. I have my actual footage and my audio at the bottom. So if you guys want to see it, it looks like so. Maria just asked if we have to use the specific footage I gave you. No, you can use any footage you want. That's perfectly fine. So yeah, just breaking down this video, one thing that I'd highly recommend is cut to your audio, but when you can, cut your video to your audio. When I say that is, now it's really cool to cut the videos, switch to the next video at a beat. But what's even better, and the advice that I got, is if you can cut, say you're dropping something, and when it hits the table, cut that drop to a beat. When you can sync the video with the music, that takes it to a whole nother level. So as you can see, I've tried to, when it plugs in, that's where the click usually happens. So that way it's a bit more engaging rather than just cutting heaps of videos. So as that one plugged in, it kind of clicks, which is really good. And I've just done the same effects that I've showed you in this, a little bit even more basic. So this one just uses two different texts, one switching from camera to webcam, and it's just 4 layers, two of them being the ones with the stroke, and they're just at different levels, and then it just switches to the other one. So pretty simple and easy to do. This one here, that one is the same effect that I showed you. It's just the stroke comes first and then the fill comes in after. As well as these ones here. All these apps, I'll show you here. Where'd it go? Ah, there it is. Sweet. So as you can see, these apps, it's all just on a keyframe, and it's just going from small to big. So, and it's just position all of them like so. Nice. And that's the same thing I showed you, just 2 of them. So the stroke and the fill. Sweet. Ah, beautiful. Hopefully that answers a whole bunch of questions. Yeah, you can use any footage you like. Yeah, I didn't give you heaps of footage to play with, so you can definitely download as much as you can. So next thing, just real quick, if I want to resize the video, how can I do that? Oh, perfect. Yeah, I was just about to say, this is a great time for Q&A. So before we export, which we'll probably aim to export around 1 at 1. So just a Q&A. So if you want to resize your video, great. Let me just wait till this is completed. I'll just close it. It's already saved. Sweet. Cool. All right, let's open up this guy. So this is my old timeline, and let's show you how to resize. So let's go to this shot here. This is a perfect shot for it. So if I wanted to possibly just zoom in, nothing really fancy, just zoom in. If we select the layer, and note when you zoom in to things, you're decreasing the quality of your video. So that's why one of the reasons you will shoot in 4K or shoot in 6K or shoot higher than 1080p. But if we were to zoom in, just say to this house, what we can do is double click the layer and go to Effect Controls. This is here. And this, as before, we showed the keyframes, but you could also just not keyframe anything and just zoom in like so. So I'm going to put that to about 200, and you can also change around the position here like that. So if we play it, now it's just zoomed in like so. It's pretty cool. That looks actually really good. Zoomed close. This was I don't know if it's a castle, but this was in Scotland, and it was really cool, shooting a documentary. but it was really cold there too, like kind of like now. So hopefully that answers the question. If you wanted to resize, I would say your whole video, like you wanted to make this square a little bit later, you could go to sequence settings at the top here, and we can punch in, instead of 1920 by 1080, let's go to just 1080 by 1080 and press enter, and then it should be a square. So like so. So for social media, this is great. Nice. Awesome water. Cool. Anyone have any other questions that you wondering about Premiere Pro or After Effects? Either or, doesn't anyone would do. If not, I always get asked like what gear I like to use and what cameras and stuff I like to recommend. In terms of the computers, I've listed them all in the presentation I sent you guys. So this is the computer and just some specs that I have. So if you're looking to actually really get into editing and you're looking to upgrade your computer, or you're looking to get a new computer, I'd highly recommend get a really good CPU. What that is, that's the brain of the computer. It looks like a little, it's normally in Intel, like a Mac has Intel ones, they're like Core i9 or whatever. But the more cores it has, the better it is for editing. That's probably number one. The next thing is get a dedicated graphics card. That really helps, especially in After Effects. And then the RAM is the next thing. So more RAM, the better, I would say. And in terms of hard drives, I mentioned this in our last workshop as well. I have these ones, which are Samsung T5 SSDs. SSDs are a little bit different to standard hard drives because they're a bit smaller, because they don't have a spinning disk inside it. So the less moving parts, the faster it can go. That's my understanding of it. So I just edit purely on SSDs now. This hard drive is a 16 terabyte G drive, which you can kind of see it. But this is where I back up everything to, but I usually edit on just these ones here. I also use these ones, which are just enclosures, which I was talking about before, of just NVMe SSDs, which you can put them in your computer, or to actually use them as a hard drive, you just need to get them as an enclosure, which looks like that. And these are really fast as well. These are just SSDs, and you can, the cool thing about this one is a bit cheaper than this one, because you can custom it to, you can buy an expensive hard drive, or you can buy a cheaper hard drive and just put it in here. So it's pretty good. Keyboard and peripherals, spent a long time researching. This is the Craft keyboard by Logitech. Battery life is really average, but the wheel here, right there, is really good for editing. Zooming in Photoshop and stuff like that really helps. And this mouse is the super popular MX Master. Great for editing as well, because it has a few wheels and other buttons. So that's pretty good. I think we're almost time for exporting. Anyone have any other questions? Yes, Ben Walker, that's true. That's another reason. Toughness. Samsung have done an ad on how tough these are. Pretty good. Yes, Maria asked, where do you get the enclosures from? PC Case Gear, you can really get it from any computer store, but I get it from PC Case Gear in Melbourne. I found they're pretty good, but really anywhere. PC Case Gear, I'll put it in the presentation. Sweet. Awesome. So if no one has any more questions, I will just run over a few exporting things. So in regards to exporting, a few things to keep in mind. Firstly, we have codec, we have resolution, aspect ratio, bit rate, and compression. So these 5 things are the things that we'll look out for. Sounds a little bit more complicated than it actually is. So what I'm going to do is just cut here. I'm going to delete everything on this end. If you press A on the keyboard, one of my interns actually taught me this. If you press A on the keyboard, you can select everything going this way and just delete it or move it. Say you wanted to put a clip in the middle of this area, you can press A and then go back to V on the keyboard. V is for your selection tool, and then you can move it over if you wanted to. So that way you can put a clip in here, or in my case, I'm just going to delete everything on that side. So that way it's just exporting this part. Nice. That's pretty good. Just going to extend that. Let's unmute this. Let's see what we got so far. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Nice. That's good enough. Let me just turn down this audio a bit. So I'm going to take that down 4.6 and this one as well to 4.6. Nice. And I'm, for my purposes, just going to change my sequence to 1080 to square. So you guys can do the same if you want, but square is just frame size. Go to sequence settings in sequence and then sequence settings, and you can change it to 1080p or 1080 by 1080. Cool. And that's the square one. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Yeah, I actually like it widescreen. Cool. So to export, firstly, what I'd usually do is just render it, so make sure it looks good first. So as you can see at the top of my timeline, it's actually in red. In order to render it, what you can do is just press enter on the keyboard, and it will come up with this window, and that will just render the frames to make sure they're all looking sharp, all looking nice. So if yours is red, you should press enter, and then it should go back to normal. A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Cool. Awesome. So once we're happy with that, one thing to be sure of, let me just check you guys aren't saying anything. Yeah, we're good. Cool. So once you guys have finally done that, make sure there's nothing behind your actual stuff that you want to edit. Because otherwise that's going to be included in your edit. But we're going to go File, you can go Export, and then Export Media. You could do this one, or you can just press Control M on the keyboard. But if we go Media, then it'll bring up this window, and you have a whole bunch of settings. Firstly, let's look at the top one, which is Format. So format, you can choose, this will be your codec or your wrapper. I use H.264. I don't really use the Blu-ray one. I don't really need it. You can use the new H.265 if you want, or you can use QuickTime. These are probably the main three. I usually just stick to H.264 as it's pretty efficient in terms of codec. People can play it on most devices. Yeah, I just go H.264 because you get an MP4 file as well, and it's just the most useful. Under that, you can have a preset. So you, just like everything, you could preset just high quality 1080p HD. Easy enough. Once you select that, you can press export if you want, and that's pretty easy to do. Or you can go to change a few different settings. First setting I would do is just scroll down to make sure you can select your bitrate. So this is your bitrate settings, and it really comes out in terms of compression, how much you want to compress your video. So if we do the way it's doing it at the moment, it's variable bitrate. So what that means is that we can choose two different bit rates, one higher and one lower, meaning if your image doesn't have that much information in it, it will shoot it down to a lower bit rate, so that way your file size will stay a little bit smaller. It's really good for social media, and I pretty much always keep it on variable bit rate, so that way it's maximizing the file size and all that good stuff. The next to it, it says passes. So the more passes, it takes a little bit more to export in terms of time, but the more passes it has, the better it can go through your footage. So here we can choose target bitrate. I think the most videos are played back on, say, YouTube at 4 megabits per second. So it's always good to export in higher bitrate, and then YouTube will compress it for you. In terms of Instagram and Facebook, though, I usually compress it a little bit more for those. So if I was uploading this to Instagram, I'd probably, at the moment, it's sitting around 34 megabits per second. One of my mates told me that you should try to get it under 20 if you can, but it's not necessary. But in order to compress it just a little bit more, I would probably change my target bitrate to, say, 12. And as you can see, it changes my estimated file size down to 20. So what that's going to do is, as it goes through the footage, it's going to compress most things at 12 megabits per second. And if it sees there's more information there, it's going to bump that up to 24 megabits per second. So that way, your whole video is not 24 megabits per second, it's around 12. So that way, it's going up and down depending on how much information is in the video. And it's just more efficient for anyone who's watching your video, so that the file size is a little bit smaller. Cool. And just leave it on 1 pass for now. At the top here, we can select output name, and that's also where you can select where you want to save it. I'm going to save it to my editing workshop, and I'm also going to create a new folder under exports, so that way I know where all my exports are. And if it's just a draft, I would probably call it editing workshop draft 1 or something like that. Or I'll even save it in its own draft folder. But if it's an actual output that I'm sending, I would probably just put a 01 next to it, or a 02, or a 03, or 04. That way I know the highest number is the latest version. So I'm gonna export that. Bam. And that's pretty much how to export the video. So that's just going to take a bit, and then that's it. What do you set for YouTube? Great question. Let's jump into that. So YouTube, I usually take it to a higher bit rate. One thing you can do is, even though you have a 1080p video, you can actually export in 4K. What this is going to do is expand your video to have more pixels, so that way when you upload it to YouTube, it's going to compress it less, because YouTube has a really high compression rate. So I'd recommend export it in as high as you can. So if we go to H.264, which I usually keep it on, but we change the preset to high quality 2160p at 4K, as you can see, our file size goes up way more. It's at 134 megabits per second instead of 34. So it does times your video file size by heaps, but you're going to get more quality, so that way you upload to YouTube, it's not going to compress it as much. So I either do 1080p HD, and then I just keep this at where it's at for YouTube, or I can export it in 4K. I rarely tweak it for those kind of things. It's pretty stock standard. Hopefully that clears up your question. Sweet. Awesome. Sweet. So that's pretty much all the editing bits and pieces. I have listed a whole bunch of gear that I use in the presentation as well. If you're looking to get any new gear that help you shoot videos better, but also light videos better, all the gear is in there. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them through Instagram or anything like that. I'm always there. And just again, to upload all the videos you're working on with the skills you've learned today and with the footage you're downloaded, send it through to Instagram or upload it to Instagram, tagging George's Cameras and Unmarked Social at the end of this workshop, or maybe like an hour after, so that way we can take a look at it and pick a winner to win the tripod I lost. This tripod, and you'll get a brand new one, don't worry, and a bag of Sony stuff, which is going to be super exciting. In terms of plugs, and you want to learn more information, highly recommend these YouTube channels. So it's my one, it's George's Cameras one. Filmright is a great place. They just released a new editing video as well, so you guys can check that out. Studio Binder is really good for framing and understanding that, because they are a storyboarding software. Potato Jet, Gerald Undone, Philip Bloom are great filmmakers, as well as DSLR video shooter on YouTube. He is definitely one of the biggest helps that I've got in the world of filmmaking when I first started. So highly recommend that. Nelson said, how do you like the C200? Yeah, I've been using a C200 for about a year now, and it's a pretty good setup. At the moment, I have it connected to a Kamikaze AG1, the commercial I showed you. I have it connected to that, connected to the stream through my Small HD 702 bright monitor to add a LUT on it, so that way it doesn't look bad. But yeah, it's okay. It has its quirks in a sense that you can't shoot at a higher bitrate than 8-bit, and it shoots 4K. The slow motion is very average, but in terms of a camera, in just a 4K 25 frames a second or 50 frames a second is incredible. I've shot so many projects on it that I still love it, even though it has its flaws as well. But the new C300 looks great as well, and the C500 that I'm really excited to get my hands on, try it out, see if it's the camera for me. But yeah, for now it's good enough. I really like the autofocus as well. I could probably go do a full another workshop on the C200, maybe another day. Also, it's the perfect time to stick around because you get discounts as well. George's is enough to hook us up. It's kind enough to hook us up with a whole bunch of discounts on all the gear that I use. So if you wanted to get a C200 yourself, they might be able to sort you out with something like that. But in this, we have Manfrotto, which is the light stands and the tripod that I use. Photix, which is the softbox that I use to actually light this video. I'll show you with and without it. So that's without it, and that's with it. See, it's doing a whole bunch. Wooden camera is actually the battery plate I use for my C200. Pelican cases is what I travel with all my gear in. Low Pro is what I used to own. Was one of my first camera bags. So good. Rode, I love their microphones. They're also Australian, so Australian companies are awesome. Rode microphone there, and Rode microphone on the Canon C200. Sennheiser, the headphones that I'm using to edit most of my videos now. These are really inexpensive. I was testing them out in a recent video, and I was like, hey, they're pretty good. I'll just use them because they're monitoring headphones, which means that it's not going to add bass. It's going to kind of just give you the raw audio to work with, and that's the best thing when it comes to editing videos. These are they're doing a special or something at the moment, which is getting at $69, so it's pretty good. Also, there has a special on the XSWD wireless kit if you're looking for a lavalier microphone. It's pretty great one to go for. Zoom is what I have. I have two Zoom recorders for audio, Zoom H1 and Zoom H5. They're both really great. SanDisk, the sponsor. I have so many SanDisk SD cards. I just stick with SanDisk, like Lexar and stuff. I've never used those ones. SanDisk is pretty good. Nisi filters. I have all my filters, like my ND filters, and circular polarizer in Nissi. They work really well. Small HD, I have the 702 and focus, 5-inch focus. 702 is great. It's one of the first monitors. I've used it for about 4 years now. Definitely a great investment. Core SWX, great for batteries, V-Lock batteries to power lights, to power cameras. They're really good, and they're a great investment as well because you can put them on anything. Aperture lights. Aperture is one of the best brands for lights, in my opinion. I'm using them right now. And Blackmagic. I don't have any Blackmagic stuff, but on me at the moment. I used their intensity shuttle, which was pretty good, and I've used the A10 Mini actually. I'm getting an A10 Mini Pro, I think. So Blackmagic is actually pretty good. I've used the Ursa Mini 4.6K, and it's great. The new Pocket Cinemas, awesome as well for the price. So anything Blackmagic is pretty good. Yeah. So if you don't got any questions. I'm glad you found the info helpful. Hopefully it covered enough that you learned something. There was a lot more, as you can see in the presentation, that I was going to cover, but we just ran out of time. So if you guys want to go through it yourselves, and if you have any questions, as I said, don't just pop them through on Instagram. More than happy to do so. How's the 8-bit? Do you record externally? Nelson, the C200 doesn't record externally. I have a C fast card, so I shoot the raw video on that, and it does a great job. So if you get a C fast card. They're really expensive, but they're worth it to shoot raw. 8-bit's pretty good. Very good dynamic range with YDR mode on it as well. So highly recommend that. If you have any more questions on the C200, let me know on Instagram or anything. I really look forward to seeing you guys' submissions, guys. So send them through within the next hour, and we'll pick a winner. If no one puts their videos in, I guess I get a free tripod. So you can snag it before me. Thanks for watching, everyone. Really appreciate you guys coming out on a Saturday to learn something new. Hope you guys are enjoying life at home. Yeah, thanks again. Thanks to Georges for hosting this great event, and that's pretty much the end. Yeah, let me know, guys, questions. Awesome. Yeah, hopefully that really helped. Sweet. Any last questions before we go? Has something happened to the stream? I feel like it says excellent connection for ages. I'm not sure. Let me check. Not sure. Cool. All right. No further questions. Well, enjoy editing away. Next hour, let's put it to 2 o'clock at 2:30. We'll announce the winner on Instagram. It's not coming through. Maybe refresh. Cool. All right. For Suzanne, thanks for watching. For everyone, as I said, upload your videos so we can pick a winner. That'd be awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next workshop, which is on next weekend or something. We're doing a live streaming workshop next weekend. Obviously, you need good internet. That is number one. But other than that, we're going to go over different capture cards, different live stream setups. If you guys are looking to live stream your events, highly recommend come along. Andrew and I are going to be teaching it. So if you watch our YouTube videos, Andrew's the guy usually in the videos. So he's back. We're going to be jumping on there, and it's going to be good. Oh, no, the stream worked for me. Oh, great. Awesome. Donna, I'm really glad you learned a whole bunch. We might do a more in-depth video on any of these projects. If you guys also, we're going to be sending out an email to you all with the discounts and stuff. That's all for today only. And with a feedback form. If you guys have any feedback, I would love to get it. Obviously, the biggest feedback is, why does it keep dropping out and buffering? Already in my head. I hate that one. That was really annoying. But other than that, I'll see you guys later. Thanks, guys.